Okay, we're going to dive into the retail outlook for 2026, which largely follows a shift in economic realities and cultural trends that will shape what we buy and why. Joining us for more on this is Jessica Ramírez, co-founder and managing director at the Consumer Collective. Jessica, thanks very much for joining us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and thank you for having me.
Okay, what are we looking at? I think there's two very distinct lines, isn't it, when it comes to consumers?
Yeah, so, 2025 was quite a difficult year. We repeatedly said, the consumer is shaky, the sentiment is quite tough out there. And the consumer that was most hit was middle income and low income. And I think that is only going to be, we'll only see more of that into 2026. If I think about what I've already seen in terms of credit card debt, that has already gone up. The consumer did shop for the Christmas season, but again, we have to factor inflation into that. So how does that really look into once we get those numbers? And with the high income consumer, I think we've continued to see them spend, but even they are being quite cautious. So again, I'm still giving a bit of caution where retailers will really need to hone in on how they manage their business, which they did do a good job in 2025, managing low inventories and still, dealing with tariffs. But I think the consumer is still going to be very laser focused on what they're shopping for.
Okay, let's talk first a little about the higher end consumers. You said they're going to be a little more cautious. What's driving that?
I think, despite what we're seeing in the market, there is a lot of excitement, obviously, around AI, but I think that there's still this question of, is there a bubble? And I think in terms of that market, that is the high-end consumer who is investing. And I think in terms of investment we've seen a lot around jewelry, and that's been really good in luxury. That market has continued to do very well. So we see that as that's a key investment where they feel safe. If there is a trade down, even with food, we've seen some of that even through Walmart, Costco, how the high-end consumer started trading down in some versions of grocery. So I think that's still something quite interesting to look at as indicators. They are still spending regardless, and they had last year, they did hold the majority of the retail sales up, accounting for 50% anyway of what we saw. But I think that there is still a bit of caution behind them.
Okay, and now for consumers on the lower end of the K, are they really hitting that point where they're almost completely tapped out?
Yeah, so we had done a survey last year ahead of Christmas, and most consumers told us, and it was 75,000 and less who were earning, and they told us they were either out of savings or had been dipping into savings. We also heard that they've been doing much more buy now, pay later, which has increased by a lot more into some of that. Dipping in. So again, that's new debt that we've seen. And most recently, we've seen some credit card data where it seems they have increased their debt today. So that really just seems to be, are they buying mostly for essentials? Are they buying, when even it's grocery, we started seeing Hamburger Helper last year really gain. Again, thinking of how much is that food going to last me instead of 1 day, is it going to last me 2 to 3 days? So again, very, very targeted in the way that they're seeing their spend.
And so what should brands be thinking about as they head into 2026 with this information?
I think in terms of what is the consumer really interested in and what are they willing to purchase? Because even on the middle income and low income consumer, as we've seen the price hikes come through, if an item, say in sportswear or in wellness, is a bit more expensive, they are actually purchasing that item. They may not be purchasing a ton of it, but they are purchasing those items. So is it something that the consumer is really wanting to spend on? Does that product offer quality even at a higher price? Value today doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking for a bargain. That's something going to be cheaply made. They are looking for something that's going to be long. We've been seeing the consumer really focus around longevity. So what does that mean in terms of wellness? Is that supplements? Is that food? Is that, what else are you adorning yourself with today if you're going out running or if you're going to work? And how is that going to make you feel better about yourself? And resale has also been something we've really been looking at in the luxury sector and also just across the board. And it's also coming from a quality standpoint. I think we've been hearing a lot about questioning what does luxury look like in terms of quality and are these prices justified, where consumers are actually going back to resale and buying some of the original items at a different price.
Okay, I want to ask about some themes that we can expect for 2026, and I want to throw in there, food is fashion. And
yes,
just curious as to what that is.
Yeah, so what we've seen a lot of is there's been, again, with the high-end consumer and the consumer being so focused on wellness, and we've seen this GLP halo effect. And I think with that is what am I putting into my body, but also at the same time, almost like a status symbol. And you see different marketplaces coming in with higher end foods, making that a very fashiony standpoint. And, it's almost of where do you shop, of where are you seeing kind of thing. There's merch that's being added to a lot of grocery stores, and they might be small delis, they might be something else, but there is this cachet that comes with it. And that's really where we're seeing food as fashion, where it becomes a sector that the consumer is spending on. And again, just a very much bringing high status, which we've seen that with restaurants as well, where what are consumers eating? And we see that also with the younger generation. They seem to really be caring about that part. So again, it's an interesting category of spend and just getting a glow up, I would say.
Okay, we have to wrap it up there, but Jessica, thank you very much for joining us. All the best for 2026.
Thank you, same to you.
Jessica Ramírez is co-founder and managing director at the Consumer Collective.